Welcome to the Talent Development Hot Seat. I'm your host, Andy Storch, and I'm excited that you're joining me today for another great episode and conversation to help you up your game and improve your capabilities in the world of talent development. Today, we're talking about onboarding as well as learning evaluation and many other topics. My guest today is Lizzy Kizer, who is the Director of Learning and Development at Johnson Controls. Since joining JCI in 2016, Lizzy has been responsible for leading learning for JCI's technical labor force across the employee lifecycle. She has experience in corporate, government, higher ed, and K through 12 learning, and she has an Ed D from UC Denver, where she continues to teach courses in adult education and instructional design. Lizzy lives in chilly Wisconsin, where it's warming up now in summer with her family, and is a baseball mom of twins. Lizzy, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So excited to have you on. We were just chatting already before we got going, and we almost went too far down a rabbit hole of roller coasters and theme parks. But we're gonna focus more on talent development for this interview, and I think we
Equally
have,
fun.
yeah, we'll keep it fun though. And I think there's a lot of great topics we can get into, like onboarding, like I mentioned. But I'd love to start with some of your background because you started out in education. And if I remember right from looking at your profile, you even studied zoology, I think, and before you got into psychology and education and adult learning and into learning and development in the corporate space. And before I let you answer, I thought I'd mention it's interesting. I've noticed there's quite a few people in the learning and development world, in the corporate learning and development world, who have come from the K through 12 education. So I'm curious about your background and how some of those skills have transferred to what you do today.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like that could be maybe it is a podcast somewhere too, but those teachers transitioning out of classrooms that we're kind of seeing a lot, it
Mm,
makes a lot of sense to me to go from, learning the pedagogy of instruction in classrooms and then moving into spaces where you're applying that for like work and business. So yeah, I was a zoology major at Madison and was chilly, Wisconsin, still chilly even in summer. And I was a research assistant for like a summer. And I said, oh, wow, I don't know if I can make a lot of money being a research assistant. So I went into teaching and then I was like, oh, I don't know if I can make
mm,
enough money in this field either. But really, I taught science, which my career kind of lattice makes a lot of sense to me in retrospect. Having taught science in K-12 and really learning the foundations of education and really starting to work with adult learners in schools, so leading professional development, teaching at the college level, I was like, wow, there's so much opportunity to apply what I've learned about learning for adults whose primary goal in a day is not learning.
mm,
They have a job goal and they have work that they need to do that learning can help them do better. And so, full circle, my job right now is to lead our technical labor force in learning. And so, people working on things like chillers, things with like the refrigeration cycle or how cold air moves through buildings. We have tons of engineers. So, I really get to apply a lot of my technical love and scientific kind of love of learning at my
mm.
job, but also it's a great way to help people do better at their job that is a sciencey job, and then help the business.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I was just laughing to myself thinking you said it transfers to adult education, corporate workers, their main objective throughout the day is not learning. And I thought we both have kids. Most kids who go to school, their main objective throughout the day is not learning either. But
So true.
but
Totally.
the best teachers help them learn anyway. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah, and those K-12 settings, like from the teacher perspective, and I taught seniors and I ended my career teaching sixth grade.
Mm,
And I will say that as I went down in like grade levels, I had to get better and better at the kind of art of instruction. It was
mm,
less and less about content because you're actually teaching people how to learn. You're teaching kids how to learn.
mhm,
And hopefully as a now an adult educator, like hopefully those pathways are set and people have good habits and good skills that they learned early in education so that when they get to their job, they know how to find information. They have the skill to be flexible and troubleshoot something if they don't figure it out. But I think that whole like that's why, part of my bio is about the employee life cycle. It's really the human learning life cycle.
mm.
Did I learn what I needed early so I've got these good habits that I can apply at work, thus do my job better and help the business achieve its goals?
What do you think this is sort of like one of the secrets to life key that everyone in learning and development is trying to unlock, but what do you think one of the keys is to making learning interesting or making it setting it up in a way that the adults who have many other responsibilities still really want to go engage in a learning program or take advantage of learning resources?
I think number one, it has to be immediately applicable and relevant.
Mm,
Like when my water heater went down, my husband had a YouTube video in front of him in that moment.
right,
He didn't watch that video 3 weeks earlier saying, I
right.
wonder if my water heater is going to go down. Like, that's not how any adult,
Yeah,
we don't have room in our brains for nice to have knowledge
right.
anymore. It is really about, it's got to be critically important or of like high value interest wise.
Mhm.
Or I think a lot of it too is like, I know a lot of the stuff I'm doing right now, I know I want in my career long term. And so I'm kind of prepping and setting the stage now, learning the skills I need so that 2 years from now, I'm well poised to achieve a career goal that I have. I think it's got to be immediately relevant or just that high value to me as an individual learner.
Yeah, it makes sense. Like there's got to be a clear reason for it. Answer the question, why would I want to learn this? How am I going to use this? And it's something I can put into practice right away. Let's talk about culture and creating a learning culture, because I know you and your team, your organization have been on a bit of a journey in transforming culture. Can you talk about the culture that you've been working on setting up there at Johnson Controls and some of the things you've done to build that kind of culture of learning there?
Yeah, I think a lot of times in companies, just generally, like learning is something that we do to people, right? And
Mhm.
so it's something that we make a bunch of stuff and we either make it because we are told to make it to do compliance, or like this will have a direct impact on revenue or something like that. So I find that a lot of times, and this is across every organization I've worked for, learning is kind of reactive. And we have a very large company. And so to be reactive all the time is not sustainable. And so the goal really is to, number one, teach some of those skills we just talked about. Like, can people go find information? And when they go look for it, is it the right information, readily available, and updated? But I also think there's got to be some foundational milestones where we say we're offering learning, because we can't do it for everything all the time. And really the approach that we've taken is those critical milestones are your first day, and metaphorically we mean onboarding.
Mhm.
So those first couple of days or months, you need learning available to you,
Yep.
support, just talent support available to you. The second milestone is really doing better at the job that you have. And so upskilling in your current role. And then the final place that we really want to provide support is for career growth. And I think it's a little bit more complex than saying something like, oh, I'm a manager, I want to be a director, so I just take the director learning,
Mhm.
because you have to address that like curve of growth and kind of coach and support before someone's ready to just kind of step into that learning. Even that idea of zone of proximal development, or ZPD, if you're in a manager role and you just are dumped into like a hypo director program, do you even have the concept or the enterprise mindset that you're going to need to be able to apply all of that kind of programming?
Mhm.
We don't think so. And so that scaffolding is really important.
Could you back up and you said
Yeah.
ZPD? I don't think I'm
Yeah.
familiar with that. Can you talk about what that is?
Yeah, zone of proximal development. Is it Vygotsky? Oh, I'm really going down into the depths of my theoretical training, but I think it's Vygotsky did the zone of proximal development. And the idea is that you can learn, there's like kind of like a bullseye of knowledge, and you can learn at your zone of proximal development, which is a little bit uncomfortable, but it's not too uncomfortable.
Mm.
And so if I try to teach myself, like, or if I try to teach my fifth graders calculus, it's way too outside of their zone of proximal
Mm.
development. But if I try to teach them maybe algebra concepts, well, I do know that they've got adding, subtracting, math all down right now. So that might be a little bit closer to their ZPD.
Yeah. Okay. It makes sense. And you're right. It is Vygotsky.
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 Vygotsky. Okay. And so,
Oof.
like, thinking about it at work, if I take a new engineer and I bring them in day one, I better not be teaching them advanced engineering concepts right away just because I have a need on a customer site for an advanced engineer. I
Right.
need to scaffold and provide learning in a way that makes sense for them, that they're able to consume it and digest it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. This is similarly when I've studied the concept of delegation, which is something that many companies want to get their leaders doing a better job of. Delegation, the best delegation is usually something that's within the expertise of someone. You can challenge them to get a little bit out of their comfort zone, which is how they grow and get better. But if it's too far out of their comfort zone, then it
Yeah.
becomes overwhelming and it doesn't go well.
Right. Yeah. You're not going to give me a stretch assignment in finance.
Yeah.
Like that's not a stretch assignment. That's impossible. So
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, you mentioned onboarding, and the one of the main reasons I wanted to have you on the podcast today was because when we chatted before, you told me about this robust onboarding program that you created, and even had some great data to show the impact that it's made. And I thought that would be really beneficial for others
yeah.
in development to hear about it. So, can you tell us about the onboarding program and what went into it, and of course, what some of the results have been?
Yeah, for sure. So part of this, like driving the learning culture and these moments or milestones, to offer learning opportunities, the first one was onboarding. And really, to be frank, we're not through our journey yet of building out those supports, but
Mm.
we're in a good spot with onboarding. Historically here, we have not centralized onboarding for a lot of our technical populations because they are extremely varied geographically. It is a huge population, like 30,000 people or something. And there's so many roles. So we actually narrowed our scope to 22 different roles within North America that we were kind of owning or looking at learning for. So really, like you look at that problem holistically and it could be very overwhelming. But we had really great sponsorship who was like, let's start with one role, let's try it out. And so just like any instructional design, you start with a needs analysis. What does someone need to know at 6 weeks, 4 weeks, 2 weeks? We worked obviously backwards from what our stakeholders thought good would look like to design a program. And really, the truth is, like, the field is like our field leadership and our SMEs are the drivers of these programs. We enable them and we can scale them, but the people with the knowledge of how to engineer or how to wire something, they're the ones who really write the program. So we piloted it with one audience and we did what maybe we'll talk about later, some evaluation of this, but it was showing to be very effective around reducing attrition
Mm.
and employee loyalty. So we took on another role and we took on another role. And so within the last 2 years, we went from really 0% centralized onboarding to 80%. So we now have onboarding available for 80% of our North American colleagues. And that number is about 60% globally. And so what this means is that when you show up, instead of waiting maybe 6 weeks to get into your first technical course, we grab you on the first Monday that you are an employee. You have a human face to welcome you and tell you, hey, I'm so and so. This is how the program's going to run. And they walk you through each step. And we're really finding that human touch at that milestone is a critical one.
Mm.
People want to feel welcomed. I
Yeah.
remember my college orientation. I remember the faces of the people that I met that day, and
Yeah.
I'm still friends with one of them. So, I think that first day jitters, this helps a lot. What we do is we lead people through kind of three phases of a program. The first is really about the company. What do we make? What do we do? What does safety mean here? We have a huge safety culture. And then how do you use your materials? What tools do you need to do your job? We use a employee pulse survey, and we really find that growth support and equipment piece of how am I prepped to do my job, our scores for people going through this program are really incrementally higher, especially on those in the first couple of weeks. After that, we go into kind of like the science basics of whatever role it is. So we do HVAC, fire and security at our company, and we'll walk people through what does it mean to be an HVAC? How does heat transfer? What are the machines that we're talking about? What is safety for those machines? And then the last kind of, thread of the program is this role cohort. So what does it mean to do my job? What we have people pulled out then into specific role cohorts who say, for your job every day when you show up, this is what you're going to do. After that, we release them with a development plan and some training for the next year, and they're off, released back to their managers. So we find not only do these people on every single driver of our employee pulse survey score better, but we've also been able to save the managers what ends up being like 120 hours of onboarding that we take. So their time is freed up because we've trained them. Right. So the dollars are amazing. The impact is amazing. The net promoter scores are great. So that's really been the push of the last 3 years for us.
That's fantastic. And I've interviewed a couple other people about onboarding programs before, and I know one of the biggest value, besides the feeling that these new employees get and they get up to speed faster, is you are also saving managers so much time, because before you do it, and essentially you've got all these managers doing their own thing, taking a ton of time for it, and maybe outside of their area of expertise somewhat to be providing, the company onboarding versus like what they need to be doing in their, in that team. And so you're making their job a lot easier. So I would imagine you hear from managers that they appreciate the work that's being done there as well.
We do. And we'll always try to get better because, what would be awesome and kind of our next level goal is something like, all right, what are you learning this week? And can I, as a manager, reinforce back at the office? Like maybe I could take this person out to a job site based on, oh, you said you're learning about air handling units this week. Maybe I can go show them one back at the office. So we have some integration with the field that I still really want to do. But that start of building this culture that like, we got you, we've got your new hires, and to scale in 3 years to this 80% coverage was really the last labor of love. So now we'll move on to refinement.
Yeah, makes sense. So I know you have a global population, you got people in a lot of different places. I'm curious, how long is the onboarding program? How much of it is there? Some of it that's done in person? Is it all done virtually? And is it all created and managed in-house, or do you work with partners as well?
That's a great question. And actually, I should have pulled my slides up for my own, kind of notes. But we have a model where we govern globally, but execute locally. Okay. So this is all done in-house. And what we have created is a structure that has a few basic tenets that allows people in different regions to flex this program to not only their cultural needs, but their labor mix, their preferred work styles. So for example, the North American version of this, it all starts virtually, but we have certain programs where it's really technical or hands-on, where we'll bring people together for 3 days at the end of the program to test their knowledge on actual equipment with a certified instructor. Okay. Now, that's different than, say, in Europe, we have a couple of groups who they bring you together right away for the first week. And there's, meals and activities, and there's a much more welcoming sense for that first portion of the program, but then it turns virtual. So it allows my regional partners to be very responsive to their business, demands and their learner needs, but it allows us still to maintain a great governance model globally.
You mentioned a strong NPS, that you were saving managers a lot of time. I think I remember when we talked before, you also saw an improvement in retention as well. Is that right?
Yes. And so really our kind of like top 5, great takeaways in terms of metrics are programmatically, we have over 300% ROI. The program is not really like resource heavy. There is some travel. If you travel to one of these capstone events that I was describing, we obviously have a great cohort of program leaders that we fund. But the returns are things like retention. And so retention is about 5 to 7 times improved for this population compared to peer groups, which now we kind of lost our, control group because everyone's going through it.
Everyone's going through it.
But that data was true when we weren't achieving 80% completion. We also see a 36% improvement in performance attributed solely to the program. So we use a really great benchmarking tool that it's obviously it's empirical data in that we collect surveys, but we benchmark those with managers, but then also other industries. So do the responses of a manager witnessing their employee going through the program validate what this employee says? And we're seeing that not only is the time to productivity about 2 times shorter, but their performance is improving at a rate of 36%. I mentioned the Pulse survey, but every single driver, these students going through these programs are scoring higher. And then the manager time savings is also just, when you scale that, it's a ridiculous amount of money. So
yeah, that's very strong ROI, and what you love to see when you're creating programs in talent development that you can take to, senior leadership and say, look, we've got a strong ROI on this investment. For anybody that's listening, thinking, okay, I want to improve or revamp our onboarding program. I know you mentioned you was created all in-house. Any resources you would point people to that were helpful along the way, or key learnings or things that you've done that you think could be helpful to others?
Yeah, so there is a book called Successful Onboarding. I do forget the author. It's yellow with a red outside, but that was a good look. But honestly, we started kind of just doing this based on, I don't want to say gut feel, but really responsive to what we were hearing in the business and what we knew was right for our learners. And then about halfway through, we picked up this book and I was like, oh, this is kind of reinforcing and validating everything we're talking about. Did you find it?
It's Successful Onboarding Strategies to Unlock Hidden Value Within Your
Yeah.
Organization by Mark Stein and Lilith Christensen. I hadn't heard of this book before.
Yeah, it's good. And really a lot of what we heard and a lot of the solutions that emerge after kind of eliminating constraints and trying to scale were validated by, this book, which was great. But I think the most importantly, the thing I would say made the biggest difference was a strong business partnership, because we are existing only to enable our business's goals. We want people to do their best and we want them to be productive faster and we want them to not leave so that the business can achieve great growth and tons of success. So to understand our business, to understand the roles and what these people are doing out in the field was our absolute best tool. It's a lot. And that's why what I said in the beginning of the geographical complexity and just the sheer volume of people made this so hard, because to wrap your arms around a population like that and truly get to know them was super challenging.
Absolutely. Okay. I also want to ask you about upskilling and reskilling for your frontline people and leaders, and it's something that you've been working on as well. So we've invested a lot in onboarding, but how do you make sure that people are continuing to grow and get the skills they need to stay relevant in the future?
That's exactly where we're at right now. And one interesting project that we have going on was we really took a look at our whole catalog, right? Current state evaluation, and what are we providing to people for this next milestone of upskilling and role. And we noticed that so much of our learning was product focused. And so we have a chiller, let's learn about this chiller model. We have certain other types, we have controls, let's learn about these types of controls. But what we didn't have was more of a leveled system of understanding from foundational to intermediate and to advanced. And so we are in the process of breaking apart. So if we take this one chiller class, for example, what in this class is foundational, what's intermediate, and what's advanced? And let's provide learning for people who are at the beginning of their understanding and the middle, and to scaffold learning for them, instead of being product learning, we think is going to be a lot more effective. Now, if I'm upskilling in the role that I have, I might not be starting at the beginner. I might be starting at the advanced. If I was hired from an outside company, why would I have to take all those kind of foundational courses if I already know it? So this is going to allow us to be a lot more responsive to meeting people where they're at and giving them targeted learning for what they need.
Absolutely. And how do you think about or determine what are the skills that people are going to be needing and think about what are the most important skills to develop?
Well, and I think there's another question in there too, which is today versus tomorrow.
Right. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so, yeah, that is so hard. There are some things that will never change, right? Like we are going to have people maneuvering around equipment all the time. Like if you're using a wrench today, you're still going to need to use a wrench tomorrow. But the pace of change and the pace of innovation, I think we can predict some of those things,
Mhm.
but I think we have to stay open for all the things that we don't know. So what that means for me as a learning leader is I need to be able to create solutions that are agile, that can be updated quickly, that can be responsive to new technology. And I think we're at the beginning of really understanding, like, how does speed change so that we can be responsive? Now, what skills are we doing? Like, we have very technical skills, and within different buckets, there's different technical skills. I think we also have soft skills. And I don't know if we're calling them soft skills anymore. Power skills is
Power
kind of what
skills.
we're
Yeah.
called. Yeah, power
Mhm.
skills. So some of those things will never change, right? Like customer conversations or leadership, but the future of skills, we are really at the beginning of in our industry because I anticipate so much change. I'll tell you a story though. Here's why I have no fear, because I was with a technician on a ride along one of my first years here. And I went to his office and he sat down at his computer and he's like, here's what I do all day. And I'm like, you're on a computer? In my head, I thought you'd have a, tool belt or whatever. He's like, no, I'm a programmer. And I was like, okay, cool. He's like, do you want to see how I started? And he opened a drawer in a file cabinet that just had all this ticker tape with little holes in it.
Mhm.
He's like, and I'm, relating the story poorly, but he had started with this like analog process and now he's doing very complex programming on computers. This is the most flexible, tech savvy audience
Mhm.
I've ever met. And their ability to keep up with change and innovation is so great.
Mhm.
I don't want to be the one to slow them down.
Right.
So we're really thinking about how we can enable speed and how we can enable innovation and meet them way out ahead because that's where they are.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's what we have to be doing these days, especially if you're in a technical field like you're in with a lot of engineers and people doing technical work. The work is changing all the time. The technology is changing all the time. So you've got to be there to enable or get out of the way, right? So that people
Yeah.
continue to learn and upskill so that they stay relevant and can take the company into the future. Lizzy, let's talk about learning evaluation because you already talked about some of the metrics that you looked at and the way you measure the success of the onboarding program. And I know you've led a few large scale ROI studies, and this is something that a lot of people in talent development are trying to figure out. How do we measure the success of what we're doing so that we can maybe sell that internally? So, can you talk us through your
Yeah.
approach to this?
Yeah, I think so. Back to an earlier, part of our conversation, but being that real business partner and getting to know your business, and what are the KPIs that your leaders are tracking? What are the KPIs that your partners think are important? Just right before our call, I was on a work call and we were trying to find some funding for something. And if we don't do it, the cost of repairs for customers will go up because we are going to have untrained techs.
Mm,
And so, really thinking about that value stream of if we don't train people to do something, what are going to be the effects, not only on our business, but on our customers,
mhm.
I think is like a mentality shift I think also to do good ROI, like, yes, you need to understand the KPIs, but it's also, you just have to kind of start. And so most of my, good studies all come out of either a whiteboard or a piece of paper where it's like, all right, the easiest stuff I know is travel. What is travel going to cost? What do people's time cost? What does my investment in the learning or the solution cost? All right, so we had to buy something, and then it's people's time. And just those rough quantities or quantifying the investments can get you started. And so we really think about any input. What did it cost? The hardest part is to say, what was the impact,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so we do use that survey tool that I told you about. That is the industry benchmark tool that is amazing. And it allows us a lot of ability to provide information around performance improvement and ROI. But thinking about, if you design learning based on one of those outcomes and you can track it, like, hopefully that thread is tight. Like, hopefully you've worked with your business enough to say, oh, the learning was required because people aren't repairing things in time. Can you show me your dashboard for that where I can get a value? And hopefully you see that change, and then
Mm.
you compare it against your inputs.
Okay. So looking at, you're looking for every cost that's possibly associated with it. So you're really honest about the costs of
Yeah.
putting this program together, including travel of bringing people together, if it's in person, or you're bringing in an outside provider or something, or they've got a speaker that's got to travel from somewhere. But then you're also looking at what are all the shifts or changes, the from to, having these repair people upskilled and they're able to provide better, faster service. What is that worth to the
Yes.
customer, to the client? Can you measure the impact of that? And then obviously you can then take the increases in productivity and and translate that into revenue in some way, and then divide that by the cost, and you've got your ROI.
Right. And even to like postulate on it, to say, well, let's just pretend that this improves time by 5 minutes, which
Mm-hmm.
feels so nominal.
Mm-hmm.
Then put that at scale for your whole audience, and it
Yeah.
becomes like an actually really big number. And so then you can say to someone, does 5 minutes feel right? Like, you go to your trusted business
Mm-hmm.
partner, does 5 minutes feel like what it's improved? Or what data do you have that it's more or less than
Mm-hmm.
5 minutes? So I think then you've also got to consider those intangibles, things like employee net promoter score, loyalty, retention, like that investment in training and talent by itself, while maybe immeasurable. Um, could you quantify what you propose attrition will be improved by?
Yeah, absolutely. Liz, let's talk about career development, which is a subject that's near and dear to my heart that I'm very passionate about. I know you have also been on a journey of encouraging more career mobility and making it easier for people to take on different roles in addition to the upskilling, maybe moving up they could be doing, revamping job architecture. Can you talk about the approach to career development, what some of the things are that you've been working on there?
Yeah, so if we're halfway through our enroll upskilling, career development right now is something that we are catching up on the technology
Mm.
side, so that everything we're providing, not only can people see for themselves, but our company can see the investment that these individuals are making into their own careers, right?
Mhm.
So we're on a technology journey that will help. But thinking through this milestone or this moment of like, what do people need when they're looking for the next step? We have a really robust leadership portfolio of programs. And so people go through these learning leadership programs as they're ready for their next journey. And they're really great because they're stacked and scaffolded. And so I might take a leadership program as a manager that when I'm a director and I take the next one, builds on those concepts, and it allows me to lead my team in a different way. We get lots of like feedback and coaching. And so everyone at our company is eligible for those programs. And so that's kind of that like leadership side of it. Because really, when you think about a technical audience, or this would apply to like a sales audience or whatever, at a certain level of leadership, it stops being about the content and it really starts being about the people. And so we are constantly building that people side along with the technical skilling and abilities, to make sure that when someone steps into a role like that, they're able to lead a team in the way that, our company wants them to.
Mhm. And you're also looking at ways to make it easier for people to find different opportunities, different
Right.
roles that they can move into as well, right?
Yeah, some of the technology that's coming out is amazing. And I'm, minutely read into some of that, but things like matching and, putting your skills or your IDP into your development plan into a platform that
Mhm.
allows the engine to find you
Yeah.
and find out things that you're suitable for.
Yeah.
And then having the learning to support getting you to that point so you're ready when the job opens is the whole goal. That is
Mm.
the whole goal.
Yeah, agree. I love that. Lizzy, you've accomplished a lot of things with your team since you've been there. We've covered quite a bit here with onboarding and upskilling and career development and learning evaluation. Anything else that you are particularly proud of that maybe we didn't talk about or you think would be valuable to share with others?
I mean, I love attempting to be a voice, not the voice or whatever, but for these populations who out on our sites, like they're working on rooftops in Phoenix,
Mhm.
they're working outside in freezing cold Wisconsin in the winter.
Mhm.
And I've always appreciated being able to say, these teams are so capable, so flexible, so innovative, such amazing problem solvers. Like, if you think about showing up on site, and an interesting segue would be like how we're changing the game around knowing what you're walking into when you show up on site, like, but showing up and being like, I wonder what's wrong with this, multi-ton piece of equipment, having the right tools in your truck. Like, I love that we are heads down every day making these people's jobs easier. They're under equipment. They're the ones with like tool bags and toolboxes and safety gear on. It's an inherently like somewhat fraught job. Like these things, it could be really unsafe, but
Yeah.
we're making it safer. We're making it more efficient. We're making it easier. And I think, I'm very proud of that. There's a lot of these projects, like kind
Yeah.
of more reactive projects that we do, but to be able to push forward the learning culture for this particular group of people, I'm very proud of.
Yeah. And if there's one industry that is not going away, it's HVAC because it is getting hotter. It's getting hotter and hotter outside. And there's more of a need for air conditioning, chillers, all the stuff
Yeah.
that
And
you
our data
do.
use, the buildings that are generating
Hmm.
heat are things that we all love and find important right now.
Oh,
Social media, cell phones,
yeah.
computers, work, data, like we are cooling those spaces too. And to me, that's the next and most interesting frontier.
Yeah, and all that work is changing like everything all the time. And so you get to be on the forefront of enabling people to get better at the work that they're doing. And I think it's so impressive the work you've been doing. So thank you so much, Lizzy, for taking time to
Uh,
come on and share with us today. It's been great talking with you. Just curious, last question for you. As you have been able to do so many of these different things, others are listening, maybe earlier in their careers, wanting to grow in talent development, what's one more piece of advice you would give for someone that wants to be able to grow and take on new and innovative projects in talent development?
yeah, that's a great question. Well, for me, it really is deeply knowing your learner,
Mm.
deeply knowing your audience. And if you can become, this expert generalist kind of conversation. I think you need to be good at both, but to find a passion and really follow
Mm.
it and say, you know, I believe in what I'm doing and I'm choosing a career that like makes me feel good at night when I'm
Mm.
not at work and I can put my head on the pillow and know that I help someone. I think that passion translates. And I think when you create that excitement about your job, it drives you to want to do better and drives you to want to learn. Like, I do think a lot of people are in jobs to get the paycheck, and that's great.
Mm.
But if you can find something that you also love doing and it drives you, I think you get a lot of momentum that way and it keeps you interested and not bored.
Oh yeah, absolutely agree. And the passion really you emit it out and people see how much you care about it, and it makes others interested as well,
Yeah.
just as we have been today. So Lizzy, thanks again
Yeah.
for coming on and sharing all that you know and all you've done. It's been great talking with you, and I look forward to talking with you more in the future.
Thank you for having me. It was great.